I would like to inform you that I am recording this session tonight, just so that you'll know. The reason is it's a training session, and we hope to be able to use the content that is recorded to help along the way as we gain, because we anticipate that there will be some amount of turnover as changes take place in wards. So I'd like to welcome the new specialists that are with us today. We would like you to understand this is the second session that we have had. We had a training session last month. We recorded it, and I have it available on my YouTube channel as well. So I'd like to welcome you. I think everybody probably knows who I am, but I'm Brother Webster. I'm the High Counselor that is assigned to Welfare and Self-Reliance. This has been one of my favorite callings, I think, in all the 40-something years I've been a member of the church. What I'd like to do is share my screen, and then I just want to give you a little bit of context before I do. So each of you should have received a couple of documents during this month from me. They were both, one is one-page overviews of the various programs, and the other one is a two-page kind of an index, an overview of the whole welfare and self-reliance. And so as I looked at those, and I was contemplating how to present that in tonight's training, I decided that it would be very overwhelming to try to just go scrolling through this document, and people wouldn't have a frame of reference to understand what they were doing. So I put together what I'm going to show you tonight as an attempt to make it a little more visual and interactive. So as I present this to you, it's got two purposes. One is to help you to kind of become familiar with these two documents. And then the other is to give you a tool that you can use as you go into presidencies and councils. And you can show this on the screen, and then it's kind of an interactive. You can click here and there and look at the content. And you'll kind of see what I mean as we go along. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Hopefully I can make it to the right screen. Okay, I'm going to put it in full view mode. And I'm telling you as I go along, because I'm hoping that you'll kind of pick up on how, and maybe think about how you would use this tool. So the way I built this tool is as a PowerPoint, I'm scrolling the mouse button, and you'll notice that it's not scrolling, because it's really meant to be viewed one slide at a time. So on each of the slides, you'll notice that there are navigation buttons in various places. And so hopefully I'll kind of explain as we go along. I'm also going to talk about the content in them. So basically, I want to start out by talking to you about the basic, very foundational roles that have shifted in the church in the last couple of years. This illustration is very common in training with welfare and self-reliance. It indicates that at this point, the bishop then and his counselors are responsible solely for the youth, for being a common judge, and that's the bishop, The bishop is responsible for finances and temporal affairs and for fast offerings. That is the bishop or the branch president. That he has to take care of. And then he and his counselors, particularly like with the youth, they share the burden of focusing on the rising generation. Now, when I was a bishop, I was under the old system where this was true for us, but as a bishop, I felt compelled to take care of a lot of other stuff in the ward. That has changed. Now, the bishop delegates responsibilities and is aided by the Elders Quorum presidency and the Relief Society president, who share within the ward the responsibility and the roles of making sure that ministering is effective and takes place, temple work, caring for those in need, missionary work, and family history. Most elders quorums and probably Relief Society presidencies then delegate to counselors some of these responsibilities. Overall, though, then you see there's a kind of a shift that has taken place. Caring for the needs and the welfare of the members of the church and the sharing of the gospel on both sides of the veil falls under the purview of the Elders Quorum and the Relief Society presidencies. Now, how do you as stake and ward specialists kind of come into this? Then as you probably see here, I wrote that you guys are tasked with assisting the bishop, the presidencies, and the councils to understand the welfare and self-reliance tools and services. You can also, at the delegation of the bishop, participate in helping them to, for example, meet with people that need self-reliance plans filled out and things like that. The biggest task, I believe, is it allows them, the Elders Quorum presidencies, Relief Society presidencies, the ward councils, to learn how to identify appropriate resources that match specific needs. Okay, so does this make sense to everybody first before I move to the next slide?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of sets us up on where we are at this point. So I'd like to talk about what I call the ministering cycle. One of the things you'll notice I put over here in this lower section right here is a key. I can testify that the ministering cycle, or whatever you want to call it, is key to welfare and self-reliance tools and programs and products being used effectively to meet the needs of members. And what I'm going to do is I want to visit with you just a minute about this cycle. So first, let's talk a little bit about the first step, and that is literally ministering taking place in the unit. Okay, I put on here that needs are identified. So is there anybody out there that can say that ministering is totally effective and produces the information and needs are identified fully in your unit?
Oh, gosh, no.
No.
Not very
Okay, so I'm going to say, if there's no response, I'd say there's probably room for improvement in every unit.
good.
One of the things, excuse me?
Most definitely.
Yeah. Okay, one of the things that I think will be a key of making sure that ministering takes place is this next step in the cycle, and that is interviews. Okay, interviews not being conducted on a regular basis and conducted so that appropriate questions are asked and more like a counseling session with a set of ministers is vital to helping to prompt and to teach ministering sisters and brothers how to do their duty, how to really build relationships with their assigned families and individuals, as well as how to spot when there are needs that come up. Interviews, literally, if they do not happen in the units, I can guarantee that ministering itself is probably marginal in most units.
Yeah.
Would anybody want to comment on that?
I think you're right on.
So this is so important that the stake presidency has agreed to make this a focus in the state. Now, as needs are communicated during those interviews, the brethren or sisters who are doing the interview should then take that information back to the presidency meetings, their respective Relief Society or Elders Quorum presidencies. Those needs should be discussed in that presidency. We should always remember, of course, that the meetings are private and the information that is brought to them are confidential. A key task then that those presidencies should have is to identify resources that the church has, and in the bishop's welfare, the bishop storehouses, which is all the resources that the wards and branches can bring to bear, and identify and match those needs to those resources. Now, the end discussion should be, the end product or deliverable from those discussions should be a plan or a proposed plan to work with those individuals. Now, at that point, there are two options. If the proposed plan needs to be reviewed by the bishop and the ward council to gain other resources or to gain approval, then that information can be taken to the ward council. And the ward council then functions as the platform where recommendations from the presidencies are reviewed, and then decisions are made and assignments are given. This is the place where the full resources of all the organizations in the church can be brought to bear. For example, if, ministering brothers and sisters or sisters find that there is a family that needs strengthening, and perhaps they have children or they have young adults in their family, and the ministering brother or sister finds that and notices it, they can take it to the interview. Then that is taken to the presidency meeting. And one of the things, and I sent this, by the way, to President Reed, and he validated it for me. Then what happens then is they say, well, we need for perhaps a young single adult rep or somebody at that level to get involved to try to work with their young adult. Or they might need somebody from the Relief Society or from the primary or the young men's or young women's organizations. So that's when those things go up to the ward council, and the ability of all of those leaders in the same room talking and discussing. But if they don't have recommendations coming to them rather than just needs, then what happens is they spend probably the whole time talking about the needs and then trying to find some resources. So it's always better at that presidency level to discuss and develop as much of a recommendation as can be had. Now, you as specialists then, your role in all this is to help them to understand how this cycle works and how to identify needs, and then how to identify and match resources to those needs. Okay, so any questions about ministering cycle or any comments?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to suggest that if your unit, Relief Society and Elders Quorum presidency, know who their self-reliance specialist is, then they can come to them so that they don't have to have all that information. They can come to them and say, we have this need. What do we have in our toolkit that can help? So
Great.
I think it's important that the unit presidencies know who those specialists are.
Good, that's great. And so it's going to be important for you specialists to develop relationships with your presidencies and with your ward council. So thank you so much, Sister Larson. Okay, now I mentioned earlier that I based this tool on these two documents. The one on the left is entitled Welfare and Self-Reliance Products and Services, and I sent that out to everybody. It's literally a compilation of one-page overviews of each of the products and services that are in the toolkit. Now, this is a dated
Products and services.
Document. For example, I noticed that they don't include the newest self-reliance group in it. So the right-hand document, which is the Products and Services Toolkit, it's a two-page overview.
Is that what you got?
And it shows each of the different categories. And I'm going to go forward one so you kind of see. What's contained in there is the products and services, and they're grouped into basically 11 categories: addiction, emotional and social health, education, employment, literacy, finance, humanitarian, emergency response, basic needs, independence and life skills, and preparing for emergencies. And basically that two-page document serves as kind of an index to that big, long, multi-paged document that gives a page of detailed information. Now, what I've done to make it a little more visual for us, I've built this tool so that when you click on an app, for example, on an icon, for example, emotional and social health, the section appropriate to that category then shows up, and I've just cut and paste these out of that two-page. So how this works is on the left, in the left-hand column, the characteristics that you might see of needs or behaviors in somebody that is being discussed would be shown. So for example, emotional and social health, in that category, you might see in the Smiths anxiety and depression, suicidal thoughts or attempts, marital and parenting difficulties, and family member support needed. Okay, so those are the things, basically the keys or the triggers that you would be looking for. And as you teach your presidencies, they can use that document or this tool to literally teach people that if you see any of these particular flags in that family, then the appropriate or possible resources are shown over on the right. So the black bullets show what you would see possibly, and the right column shows what literally the resources that the church has developed. Now I should tell you about a couple more links that I've done here. See this heart right here? Every one of these that you can click on has that heart. That heart is a direct link, and I'm going to click on it just to show you. it's a website is designed by the church source as people for just a huge array. And I'm kind of going to brag, of course, my system says low resources. Okay, but the things, every one of those bars that you click on, it's going to look at the array: abuse, addiction, adoption, grieving, divorce, education, employment, just about any topic that could come up in a discussion. So I made that what I've done in this document. I'm going to go back to the document now. You'll notice that I've gone through here, and each of these bullets are active links. Okay, so for example, if we come across a person that needs some job training, and of course this is in the employment, okay, there's Deseret Industries, okay, if that's a limited availability means that it may not be available in our area. But each of these gives active links to web pages that are available or pages directly to that large document, to the page that they have. For example, if you run across, and I just went to the refugee and immigrant support, okay, you'll notice that each of these pages then tells you about the needs that they might have. Okay, then it's a description of the program or the product that they have developed. Who's the targeted
We need to look at that.
recipients, and then basically how that program works. It sometimes gives additional information about places like the United States and Canada. And then the interesting thing is they give links where you can learn more. Anywhere where I have made that an active link through this presentation or this tool, I've put a little finger. So as you first go to a page in this app, you see a finger, you know that you can hover there, and that will take you to, for example, the Provident Living. Hopefully it'll be a little bit faster this time, or not. It'll be a little bit faster this time. And so you can actually go through and scroll through the various resources that are out there on the web. I tried to do that because we as self-reliance specialists should be subject matter experts. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm getting old and I cannot remember everything that's in any of these documents. And so what I've done is spent some time and tried to make it easier to be able to literally get to information as quick as you need to. Now, these links right here will take you to various places. The house link is always there in the upper right-hand corner. It is basically will always take you to the home page. The happy face will always take you to a copy of the self-reliance plan. What I anticipate in doing that is making it easy for you kind of flip back and forth between resources. And then what I anticipate would be if you were sitting in a council or a presidency meeting and kind of helping them to understand how to do this, you could go to and from the self-reliance plan and the resources that you're trying to help them to understand. Does that make sense? And they could probably, you could probably have them take notes on that plan, the part where it is on building a self-reliance plan.
One thing I'd like to interject on that.
Uh-huh.
It is filled out by the individual themselves, but I would never have them fill it out alone.
That's right.
Because it just does not come across with the information you need if they were to fill it out themselves. In fact, I think the person that's helping them fill it out, if they fill it out, is probably the best way to do it, with them there to give them the information.
Getting input from them and then showing them resources and say, hey, let's go look at the Pathway Connect program. That could be something you're interested in.
Yeah, and also hopefully the person that's helping them can be honest and straightforward with them. And when they see that they're spending $1,000 a month on clothing, let them know they think that's a little bit high.
Yeah.
So they can cut it back, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
In a gentle, kind way.
Yes. We're all kind always, aren't we? Okay, so would somebody like, let's just play a quick activity. Okay, somebody pick an icon that you would like to look at and let's see what we can find about that particular category. Anybody want to suggest one? You're quieter than my normal groups.
Okay.
Let's look in the corner there, emergency response.
That's the one I want.
Okay.
Okay, an emergency response.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so under the left-hand column, then you'll see three things, basically natural disaster, famine, and civil unrest. So the church, well, in fact, right now, Brother Dome is in Naples, Florida. Isn't that right, Larson's? Do I have that correct?
Yes,
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
tomorrow.
So what he's doing is literally going to that area, and he is helping them to set up a command center, I'm assuming, and to,
He's gonna run that command center.
okay, he's going to run the command center, and he's going to coordinate, because I'm sure that's a large multi-state event. So the church has several, and under this category, emergency response, has several programs that are, and they're normally run by the area manager, which is Brother Dome. And so what you would do is, if you were interested in this particular category, you would click on one of these, and for example, you'd go to your emergency response funding. So I'm sure that Brother Dome is coordinating with the area presidency as he works through this process in Florida. And so he will probably be requesting emergency response funding from the church for that area. Some of the events that can take place where Latter-day Saint Charity responds are hurricanes, tornadoes, which is what he's doing, but flooding. We ended up with requesting some funding when we had our flooding. Wildfires, I'm sure that's going on out here in the West. Disease outbreaks. And remember, these can be happening all over the world. Remember President Nelson, how much money did he say that they had donated during the course of this year?
900 million.
$900 million.
Yeah, almost $1 billion.
Yes. Okay, disease, civil conflict, and famine drought. But these are, as you say, some of the emergency events. The website associated with that is highlighted here. Notice I've got a finger pointing at it. So, Brother Goldsmith, you want to go out to the website and see what's there, or just?
That is it, Jerry.
Okay, how about if we go back then? When you get to one of these pages, if you'll hit the back button, it'll take you back to this kind of central page. And if you want for this bar to disappear at any time, you can click that and it'll take you right back to this. It'll change as you click on icons, but, and I'm just explaining that as I go, because if you decide to use it in a meeting. Okay, somebody else pick one. Brother Vela, do you have anything you're interested in?
Obviously, employment.
Employment. Okay, let's go over to employment. Okay, so what the ministering brothers and sisters, and I'm stating it like this because imagine trying to teach a presidency how to teach ministering brothers and sisters what they want to look for. Okay, so what we're looking for is unemployment, perhaps, or underemployment, right? So unemployment obviously is they're out of a job. Most of us have been there or done that at least once in our lives. Okay, underemployment. Underemployment, like you see a couple that just can't make ends meet, and you get to visiting with them and you start to realize that one or both of them is working way below their capacity. Perhaps you've got a guy that's got an advanced degree or partial education, but he can't find a job related to that. Or it could be that they don't have higher education, and so they're just working as labor, when in reality, they really need the income that they could gain from something else. The inadequate income is what we're talking about, is people that just don't have enough income. And then there is those who have the inability to keep a job. Now, I'll just share briefly, I have a son who has schizophrenia. He loves to work, but he just cannot. And, you know, for him, 6 months is like a long stretch with a job. He would be one of those that might show up because they have a series of jobs. They're always out there looking, they're wanting to, but they just cannot seem to keep it. So those are the things that you might teach ministering brothers and sisters to kind of spot. Those might be needs that might be brought to the presidency, to the ministering interview. Beyond the right, then, we have education for a better work, which is a self-reliance group. Find a better job, which again is a self-reliance group. Starting and growing my business, it could be that, you know, the person is really a good mechanic, but all he needs is to be able to have some help setting up a business, guidance. Okay, self-reliance centers, and we don't think there's any in our area. Brother Vela, when you were a missionary, did you have self-reliance centers down in Texas, or were they just employment?
It was just the employment, but we had access where you could connect by Zoom to, for example, like
Okay.
all these, they would be where you could join a group in any of these. As a matter of fact, in the Houston and Dallas market, they were going to Zoom more than actually online. I mean, actually instead of present for all these self-reliance courses.
Good. So one of the things on their self-reliance then is, you'll notice that down here they say, where to learn more for site locations, contact your state self-reliance specialist. I did put a link into, and honestly, right now, I can't remember which tab, but into one of them where I have an active link to the jobs site for the church. Hopefully we'll run across it. Okay, so anybody else want to suggest a category?
Let's try addiction.
Addiction, awesome. I love addiction category. Actually, I am addicted to chocolate chip cookies. So my wife and I served a service mission with the addiction recovery program, and I'm just totally sold on it. Okay, what you might see then as ministering brothers and sisters or as leaders would be indications of a pornography use or addiction to pornography. You might see substance abuse. One of the things that might be a need in a ministering family might be there's a known addict within a family, and that person is getting help, and perhaps through ARP, etc. But literally, the family members are struggling. And that's not uncommon within the families of addiction, people that are addicted to pornography or substance abuse, because there's a whole array of social behaviors that tend to accompany those two. So there are addiction recovery programs, and there are counseling services that have limited ability. So I want to go to the addiction recovery program first to show you what I put in there. Okay, so this addiction recovery program page explains what the needs are, a description of what you might see going on. They may need professional treatment, etc. Who is this for? This is for those affected by addiction and other harmful behaviors, including the families and friends of those who struggle with such behaviors. It's also for church leaders seeking support as they minister to those so affected. So the very first exposure I had to addiction, of counseling with addictions as a bishop then, was having to assume the counseling of a family. And I ended up taking that over from the previous bishop. At that point, I didn't know anything about the addiction recovery program. And so I found that I needed to know. I've put in a link here, a counseling resource, not just for pornography, but for a variety of issues that leaders might find themselves. So this particular one is pornography use. One is pornography use. Come on. But you'll notice on the left-hand column, there are another array of various things that you might be presented, or the leaders that you're working with would be presented with, such as suicide, single expectant parents, same-sex attraction, how to work with people with pornography use, missionaries who return early, mental health, etc.
Tony, I don't think you've got that one up. That one hasn't come up.
Yeah,
Excuse me?
Your link, it hasn't come up for us to be able to review and see. On your addiction counseling resources,
Okay.
I don't see that there, partner.
Okay, which you're doing it on with the online?
just looking at this.
It's yeah, on the online one, we were trying to,
Okay, thank you for letting me know that.
yeah, we're not getting that.
Okay,
Mhm.
so I will check and make sure that, see, when I ended up converting that file to Google Slides, it may have dropped some of those links or broken them. So thank you. I'll go back through those to make sure that they work for you. Okay, thank you.
Brother Webster,
Yes.
on the list of addictions, in our area, there's a casino on every corner practically. I think gambling would be an addiction that needs to be added.
Yeah,
I understand that completely.
it does. That's an addiction.
Okay, I will look and see, and actually I'll make an inquiry as far as, I'll go see if there's any resources available and add that to the document.
Gamblers Anonymous. Is it?
Okay, are there any other
What's your name?
comments about the addiction recovery program? Okay, so can you kind of get a vision of yourself sitting in a meeting? And let's say you've got this open and you are trying to explain to a presidency or a ward council, branch council, how the church has tried to develop resources to meet the needs of the members.
Brother Webster,
Yes.
if you hit the heart in that bar right there, where does that go?
That goes to the Life Help. I made that available from every bar, because it's a great overall resource to point them to. Jump, like if they don't see what they really want in one of the bullets, you can jump to this one and you'll notice the Life Health. Let me make this bigger so you can read it. Okay, it goes through literally just about every type of behavior or condition that you might see. I mean, they've done a really good job of covering the bases. And clicking on each of these is an active link to a site that deals with that very topic. So that I felt like that particular Life Help page was so important that literally I included it as an option, that if you can't find something here, then literally you can, like if you go to basic needs, they have self-reliance plan, fast offering assistance, foods, commodities provided, stake reliance centers, etc. But you can always go to Life Help. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So I'm trying to see. Yep. So what I'd like to do now, if you don't mind, you'll notice that down here, so what I've kind of modeled for you is what you might do with a council or with a presidency, helping them to understand the relationship between needs and resources. And you can actually give them hard copies of those two PDF documents. And you can say, well, this isn't as easy to work through, but it does give you an array. And you're welcome to share this document with the leaders that you are working with. I have produced it, and I'm obviously still trying to fix some of the things, but it's going to be available as an online version that you see. It'll be available as a PDF. I'm hesitant to distribute the PowerPoint version of it because I would rather it stay in its original form and not be edited and redistributed. Okay, so I would like for us to go to the first, well, actually the only scenario, because I kind of figured it would take me a while to do the explanations. But first, before we go there, is there anybody in the group that does not understand how to navigate through the document or would be unsure? Okay, so
Brother Webster, I think
Yeah.
if we had it to play with for a little while, I think it would be,
Yeah.
they become pretty comfortable with it, just
Uh-huh.
clicking on it and then clicking, drilling down into the depths of each one of those and then backing out and different things. For me, anyway, that's probably the easiest way for me to get comfortable with it.
Okay. And if you're more comfortable working with the PDF documents that we distributed, feel free to. I'm just trying to provide this as a tool and give you an opportunity to kind of be visual. And the most important thing is that the presidencies and the ward councils understand this relationship. The left-hand column is the needs, the right-hand column are the resources. And, Brother Goldsmith, I know in an earlier session, you had said, could we have like a worksheet that you work out? I had this in mind. I had actually you in mind because I thought, well, this is kind of where it breaks it down into categories of behaviors or conditions. Then as you drill into those, then it tells you what you might see and then what are some of the options. And then
Yeah.
again, I added the little heart link so that if you don't see it there, try going out to the mother website, so to speak, and see if you can find something that would apply there.
The thing I really like about it, Brother Webster, is the fact that, this is much, much better than a worksheet because this is just a lot broader. But the neatest thing I liked about it is that you can go up in the right-hand corner and you can actually click on the plan, and then develop everything right into the plan there. And I think that'd be extremely helpful.
Mhm.
And actually, I tried everything I could to embed, because the church has an active, like a plan where each of these are active link. You can type in it. But the problem was, whenever I brought it in, it wasn't active. It wouldn't work, so I ended up using this. But thank you for those comments.
Brother Webster,
Yes.
I have a comment. I think this is phenomenal. I think that it's going to take away a lot of the anxiety, especially for new self-reliance specialists, on worrying about needing to have all the answers. And this helps out a ton if we use it to where we don't have to have all the answers, that we can just go to this and, if there's questions, we can, from those that we're talking to, it's just there. And I really appreciate this. And I think that it's phenomenal. I think that the challenge we have, though, as self-reliance specialists, is that after we've done our counseling, our training with the councils or the presidencies, that it gets past them. We need to come up with some ways or solutions that we can help support the presidencies and councils when they're doing their ministering visits, to use this in their, or I'm sorry, not visits, but interviews. Yeah, to use this in their interviews, so that, because I think it will be a wonderful, wonderful tool in the ministering, when the ministering brothers and sisters get out. And if then they don't have to worry about having all the answers. They can just go to this and make some suggestions or whatever. But to me, the problem that I think we'll face, and we need to probably at some point come up with some solutions on how we can get this training to get past the leaders and on to the ministering brothers and sisters.
That's exactly correct. And that's always the hurdle, to try, and you'll notice the language that I used with you brothers and sisters tonight, as I as I got into this presentation, I asked you to envision yourselves sitting down with a presidency, et cetera, as I go through it, right? And we need to do the same thing when we meet with the presidencies and the councils. We need to help them to understand that they need to in turn train the next level down, which is the ministering brothers and sisters. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
So that's the next step. The specialists then are tasked with helping to get that to go down through. Now, my background is in, continuous improvement, leadership, development, etc. before I retired. The one thing I know is, the one thing I knew when I was going into plants, it didn't matter whether I was sent by corporate or I was requested by the plant manager. I would not be effective until I spent time with the plant managers and convinced them, and then worked my way down, if that makes sense. Because people need to be convinced, or they need to do, honestly, they honestly need to be convinced that there's a need for what you're trying to help them with. So I think that one of the key tasks that ward and stake specialists have is to work with the leadership and to bring them on board, so to speak. And as we plan the training, we decided to do this 3-month training for new specialists. That third month, which is November when we meet, that's exactly what we will spend the time talking about, is we will talk about and brainstorm ways to get the leadership on board.
That would be wonderful.
Now I'd like to go to, as one last thing, I made myself a note, I want to go to community resources. On a few of these, you'll notice that one of the bullets is community resources, and it has an asterisk. They did not actually include a page for community resources in the document. So I decided to build my own. Okay, so community resources. The church is recommending, encouraging, and would like very much if we identify the community resources that are available in our specific unit boundaries. That can include food banks, and this is my own list, and you might know that there's others, homeless shelters, counseling services, emergency services, neighborhood programs, community outreach programs, chambers of commerce, health clinics, mental health clinics, emergency, I forgot to put emergency response units. About anybody you can go to. One of the, and I'm going to make a request, we would like to create a list of the various community resources within your unit boundaries, sorry. What we want is for you to have that to help within your unit, and maybe have it sitting in your binder where you keep all this information, but we want it available to your leaders. And we would like you to send it to me whenever you get it to the point where you feel like you got enough, there, and we will compile it into a stake community resource listing. And basically what we'll do is have, a list that lists each of the units and then perhaps the towns that they serve in their boundaries and what are the resources within those areas. Sister Larson?
Yes, I was wanting to add to those, particularly the emergency resource part of your list,
Uh-huh.
is look within each of your units and find out who has the capabilities to do what. Maybe they have a backhoe, maybe they're, just find out within your ward unit what their specialties are or what they have. I think that's an important part of this list. And
Thank you.
another thing is this list is constantly needed to be updated. I mean, that changes so often that once you get that list, that's great, but then you got to get the word out that as things change, as people move in or move out, that you can, accommodate that.
When they were putting together teams last year on the tornadoes that we had in Arkansas and
Well, they were in Missouri too,
yeah,
but ours were Arkansas.
but they knew everybody who had any heavy machinery that could help and
Yeah.
everybody that had chainsaws, so they could put them on teams and send them to do specific work. And that's one of the real advantages to having these lists.
And another area where this is really valuable, which isn't necessarily an emergency like we've been talking about, but for particular people, it may be an emergency. There's a stake president in, I think it's in Mississippi, who is a real bike fanatic. And he has every kind of extra tire, whatever bikes, need. And so the folks in his units know that maybe they might have a homeless person coming through and they need help with a bike. They know they can send them to him and he can help them with that. And so that's just another area where if you know what resources you have within your own members, what equipment or services that they can provide, that can be helpful too.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm envisioning then, basically that's building the bishop's storehouse within your unit.
And something else, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but you can actually include people within your community that aren't members of the church. Find out what they have or what that you can provide for them, or say we're putting together a list of what our neighborhood has or whatever. So that's another way to reach out.
But make sure they're willing to do it before you put them on any
Yeah.
list.
Yes, I understand. Actually, when I was a bishop and we were trying to do something similar to that, I was actually surprised at how many people didn't want to be on the list. So,
I think that this is wonderful to include those that are not from the church, because the thought just came to my mind. We've got a gal in our community that is like the director over Salisaw Catholic Charities. And, when we work together as, churches, that to me, that's the most powerful help you can get. So I appreciate that suggestion and definitely agree we need to talk to them and make sure that they want to be on board with us and team up with us. But I think this is something that we really should work on as self-reliance specialists and get that information turned in as well. I think that's very important.
thank you, Sister Hubland. So one last thing while I'm on this community resources, you'll notice that I put in big red 211.org. That is I think it's an index, it's a searchable website, and there are versions of it in every state. And in fact, I think there's a Arkansas 211 website. The basic idea is if you're kind of stumped and you're looking for a resource and the church doesn't have it, you don't find it, anywhere in your immediate community, etc., you can go to that particular, if you type in just 211.org, it'll take you first to this kind of broad area. And there's two versions of it. There's a call-in, but there is also a search by online. So when I first typed in 211, I got to this particular page. Then I chose your local 211, and I entered in the area code for Boonville, Arkansas. That took me to this page here, and basically I had to retype it, or no, it pre-filled it in. But you'll notice down below it lists different kind of applications or things you're interested in. And I chose age and disability over here, and that took me to this page. And what that page did was it showed me the various senior centers that are within this particular area near us. And then I noticed that this area up above, right here, it allowed me to change the search criteria. So I would encourage you to go whenever you're thinking about resources. And I know the Goldsmiths and I kind of spent a little bit of time trying to find some resources for some people, right? And I really wish I had known about 211 at that point. And just, we could have probably used some of that help. So if you have a chance, please go ahead and kind of investigate the 211.org. So again, we're requesting a list of the various community resources within your unit. That's for your benefit. And then we'll compile them into a stake resource.
Brother Webster,
Yes.
this is interesting resources, because we recently had a brother that needed help to basically get up and walk, and we didn't know what to do, so we just assigned a bunch of brothers to go over there. And even though we're not professionals or anything, to give therapy to try to help him get up and walk, to build strength in his legs. So, it was a little awkward with our branch, convincing our brothers that weren't professionals and worried about liability and things like that, to help him walk. And then we had another situation. It would have been good to have resources. We had another situation where we had a brother that lost his medical. So we had to go in and give him a bath. So we had assigned brothers to go in and give him a bath, which was, again, awkward for brothers that were not skilled and worried about liability, worried about him falling, worried about things like that. So I think this may be a tool that we would be able to get some additional help in that type of a thing. And as a branch presidency, and as elders quorum, we coordinated that. So that's a good tool, I think, to be able to get resources when needed.
Thank you. Yes. And I think that one of the goals is for us to be able to have that access to that kind of information when we need it, rather than weeks down the road. So one of the things we're doing, and it's kind of apparently taking a while, but we requested from the state communications group to build us a website, a Facebook page, not a website. And they agreed. And so at some point in the next, hopefully this coming month, we're hoping that each of you it will be a closed website. Facebook page, but it will be for our communication between each other on a daily basis or on an as needed basis, where we can actually post needs and post things that we found and make them available to each other. And what we're hoping is that will kind of promote this opportunity. And actually, I have to give credit to Brother Goldsmith for this idea. I thought it was so good that I approached the stake presidency, and Brother Mike Doan kind of gave his sign off on it, but he said it has to be a closed group and it cannot go outside of our state. In other words, we can't try to incorporate others from other states, etc. So Sister Rachel, not Rachel, Sister Briley, one of the Brileys, I just had a senior moment. Sister Briley.
Sister Becca Briley.
Becca Briley is the one that's working to get that developed. So we're hoping that that will become active in the future. And we want to thank Brother Goldsmith for that wonderful idea. So what I had in mind, and I know we're running just a little bit over, but I want to just kind of tell you, I built a scenario, and I have in my mind, but we need to end. I had built a scenario around the Rogers family, and basically their son, he's a returned missionary, but he's struggling. And he's struggling with the transition to normal college life. He's struggling with going to a YSA branch for whatever reason. He, sometimes feels depression. Some of those are the characteristics. He wonders if he'd rather pursue something rather than what he originally doing computer programming, because he had such a good time in Nicaragua where he worked with the poorer families, etc. There's a cost associated with his education. His family's kind of got some financial reserve problems, etc. What I had anticipated was us simulating a ward council and trying to find. But let me ask, can you envision being presented with a scenario like this in a presidency meeting or a ward council, and then walking them through and saying, well, maybe we need to figure out what education opportunities with that scenario, and going through and saying, maybe we need to look at pathway. Maybe, or maybe if he's having some issues with that might need some other types of help. Maybe he needs, education, or he needs health, emotional and social help. Maybe we can get him at a family services consultation or something like that. So can you see how this could work? This whole idea of tutoring or helping these leaders to learn to match, to identify needs, and then to investigate and find resources, and then build a plan. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I want to go back to this illustration of the ministering cycle at the end. I'd like to bear you my testimony. 2018 is when ministering changed. I have been through every talk associated with that change. When they talk about a ministering in a more holy way, higher and more holy way, they're not just talking about what takes place right here. as far as the ministering brothers and sisters. They are referring to every step of the ministering cycle. For our ministering to become higher, holier, and more effective, we as specialists and leaders in our units need to help each other to learn to institute, improve, and make effective every step of this. And I leave that with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Man,
Brother Webster, we so appreciate all the time and effort you've put into this, and we know it's been a labor of love, and I just think it can be such a valuable tool. And I think as you've presented, it makes us realize even more that if we can get ministering going in our units, it will actually help less pressure on Relief Society presidencies, Elders Quorum presidency, up to the ward council. I think it will make everybody's job less, if you know what I mean. Not less, but less time consuming, and it might be labor intensive to get it all going, but once it gets going, working, I think it will be very valuable.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Brothers and sisters, by the way, I would like you to join me in congratulating and thanking the Larsons. I believe this is their last visit with us as full-time missionaries. They have for how long? 18 months?
Yep, 18 months.
18 months.
Mhm.
They had to return home a little bit early, but they continue to serve from their home. They've done a wonderful job, and we'd like to thank them for that service that they've rendered.
Thank you. We told Brother Webster earlier this week that if we could just take your stake, you're kind of what's the word?
The poster.
Yeah, the poster stake. With the things that you're doing, if we could just have other stakes come watch your meetings and see these programs like this, how valuable it would be for them. But thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate that. We're kind of stumbling our way through. We've tried it several different ways, haven't we, Hoosmans?
Well,
Yes, we have.
push forward, saints.
Yes.
Work one way, you find a different way.
Well, thank you all so much for attending tonight. And I just realized I neglected to turn the recording on, so I will narrate this thing, the training itself, and post
it's showing it's recording. I see a little button that says recording up at the corner.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. I guess I had a senior moment and I thought, I can't find the recording thing. There it is.
One last note, Brother Dome will not be having his monthly training
Oh, thank you.
this month, since he's down in the Naples area helping with the hurricane. So they will resume in November.
And hopefully you'll get an email out. And if you'll just
Yes,
pass that along to anybody within your stake, Relief Society presidents or whoever that normally might attend, that won't be happening. And like I said,
That's Sister Hubler, so you got that one covered.
yeah. So we'll send an email out in the next day or two as a reminder.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and Tony, you've given me too much credit. Believe me, it's the inspiration from the Lord, and the Lord deserves all the credit here for anything that I think all of us come together.
No.
Definitely not me.
Well, that's why we meet as a group, is because, that's the best way to find ways. By the way, Brother Vela, do you mind if you introduce yourself and let us know your background in as a church missionary that you've just returned from?
So we were in South Texas, right on the border in McAllen West Stake. And the stake president approached us to go ahead and serve a mission there. And we basically reopened the employment center for for the Rio Grande Valley, which basically constituted 5 stakes. So we reopened the center. We used the LDS employment services, and at the same time, our stake there had a self-reliance night where all these groups that we discussed that we were talking about better jobs, we actually held where they could come in and actually, so in that stake, they actually had where they came in and had the classes. Where we also participated once a week with our Southwest regional missionary training, where they connected with Arizona, Nevada, Dallas, Houston, and they were opening new centers in San Antonio. So a lot of the employment stuff is now online, like workshops, okay, in different categories where experts can sit down and where it's either an engineer or management or sales or just find a better job, where groups of individuals, members and non-members, because it was open to the public, could actually participate in it. So it gave us a great opportunity to serve and to see what was out there. It gave us an eye opener because we lived in Northwest Arkansas, and it was the first time we were exposed to the resources available that the church has.
Well, thank you so much. So you're the subject matter expert on education or on employment,
Pretty much.
pretty much. So do you mind if, I hope you don't mind my letting people know that if they really get stuck on that particular category, you can help them along.
Put his email as a hot link.
Now, I don't do that until I get permission. I learned that lesson a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, brothers and sisters. And Mr. Larson, since you guys